In late 1999, engineers at Motorola began preparing an unprecedented series of software commands. Their objective was not to launch a new technology, but to purposefully destroy one. They were gearing up to deorbit an entire commercial satellite fleet, deliberately plunging them into Earth's atmosphere to burn up on re-entry. The original Iridium concept, which had started in a Motorola research lab back in 1987, had once been hailed as the ultimate future of global telecommunications. It was a technological marvel that consumed vast capital and over a decade of research. But by the close of the century, it was a financial black hole. This is the story of how an ambitious vision to connect the planet resulted in one of the largest tech bankruptcies in history, and how those satellites narrowly escaped complete incineration.
The origin of this doomed constellation traces back to 1987, inside a Motorola research laboratory located in Chandler, Arizona. 3 engineers, Barry Bertiger, Raymond Leopold, and Ken Peterson, belonging to the company's Strategic Electronics division, began sketching out a revolutionary concept. At the time, ground-based cellular technology was fragmented and left massive dead zones across the globe. Their idea was to bypass ground infrastructure entirely by placing a network of low Earth orbit satellites above the planet. Because their original design called for exactly 77 satellites to achieve worldwide coverage, they named the project Iridium, matching the atomic number of iridium on the periodic table.
By 1992, engineers recalculated the orbital mechanics and realized they only needed 66 satellites for global coverage, though the name Iridium was retained. Motorola formally announced the project through simultaneous global press conferences. To finance and deploy the network, a standalone corporate entity named Iridium Incorporated was established in June 1991, with Motorola serving as the parent developer, primary contractor, and a partial equity holder. Building a global space network required immense upfront capital. In 1997, Iridium completed its initial public offering, successfully securing $240 million in equity and an additional $800 million in debt. By May of that same year, the first operational batch of satellites launched into orbit. Estimates of the total system cost vary. The general press, including Time and the Smithsonian, cited approximately $5 billion, while Iridium's own historical archives and financial analyses reported the total cost closer to $6 billion. Regardless, it was an astronomical sum.
Commercial satellite phone service went live on November 1st, 1998, marked by a ceremonial first call from United States Vice President Al Gore to Gilbert Grosvenor, the chairman of the National Geographic Society. But upon reaching the open consumer market, the product's sheer impracticality became instantly obvious. The Iridium hardware handsets were essentially the size of bricks, carrying a staggering retail purchase price of $3,000. Making a call was equally ruinous, though historical reports differ on exact rates. Time cited charges up to $5 a minute, while the Smithsonian reported rates between $6 and $30 a minute. Furthermore, the system suffered from a fatal limitation. The network required a strict direct line of sight between the phone's antenna and the satellites. This meant the $3,000 phones were completely non-functional inside buildings, within moving vehicles, or in the dense urban skyscraper environments where their target market actually worked.
The financial consequences of these severe limitations, especially trying to sell a $3,000 device that lacked indoor functionality, were immediate and devastating. By early 1999, Iridium was hemorrhaging cash at an unsustainable rate. In the first quarter alone, the company recorded a $505 million net loss on just $1.45 million in revenue. By March 31st, they had accumulated $4 billion in debt against a subscriber base of only 10,294 users. This fell disastrously short of viability, though sources differ on the exact target. Internal forecasts cited 500,000 subscribers. External analysts pointed to 1 million, and strict loan covenants specified 57,000. Unable to service its obligations, Iridium defaulted on $1.5 billion in debt. On August 13, 1999, they plunged into bankruptcy, marked by a chaotic dual filing. Management submitted a voluntary Chapter 11 filing in Delaware, while angry bondholders simultaneously filed an involuntary petition in New York before the cases were consolidated.
Following the bankruptcy, Motorola found itself holding a worthless Constellation and prepared the software commands to force the satellites into a fiery re-entry. But at the 11th hour, aviation executive Dan Calusi saw an opportunity. In late 2000, a bankruptcy court approved Calusi's bid to purchase Iridium's assets for a mere $25 million. To make the restructured Iridium Satellite LLC viable, Calusi aggressively cut costs. While Motorola had charged $45 million a month to operate the Constellation prior to bankruptcy, post-bankruptcy operator Boeing agreed to manage the network for only $3.5 million a month. Bolstered by a stabilizing contract from the Department of Defense, the company officially emerged from Chapter 11 on March 30, 2001. This astonishing turnaround laid the groundwork for future success, ultimately leading to a June 2026 definitive agreement for aerospace company Rocket Lab to acquire Iridium Communications in an $8 billion transaction. The dramatic rise and fall of the original Iridium network stands as a profound documentary lesson in the danger of rigid development. Iridium failed commercially because its core business strategy was locked in over a decade before launch. While Motorola's engineers were performing absolute miracles to put cellular towers in low Earth orbit, they were completely blind to the rapid expansion and dramatic cost reduction of terrestrial cellular networks happening right below them. By the time Iridium finally launched, the world it had been designed for no longer existed. It was an absolute triumph of engineering, tied to a business plan that had already been rendered obsolete.